we pray for all of them and thank thee for their good service. We are very, very grateful for the moisture that has fallen and pray that we might continue to receive the moisture that we need in this region. We are thankful for the freedoms we enjoy. We are particularly grateful to live in this free country, and pray for those who lead us and pray that they will be guided and directed. We ask thy blessings upon this meeting. Pray that we'll make proper judgments, that will be fair and judicious in our decisions. We ask thee for these things, thanking thee for the many blessings we have. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We will now move on to our agenda order approval. We have asked that item number 6 be removed from the published agenda.
So I move to approve the agenda order with that one exception, removing
Number 6.
number 6.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll move to council business.
I apologize for being late. Had a work issue.
Oh, no worries.
It's okay. You can bring treats next week.
Okay, I will.
Mayor, I just have a couple of things. I'm wondering, and I know we have a great volunteer corps in this community, and they do fantastic things for us. But I'm just concerned about our Main Street and University Avenue in terms of its maintenance and upkeep. I know those are state roads, so I'm wondering what we might be able to do to help. I know a lot of the painting, the red. I was downtown today at University Boulevard, and a car was parked almost directly at the corner because the red is all faded off of where it needs to be blocked off for the things. And so I'm wondering what we can do to help nudge the state to stay on top of their maintenance of these roads. And then along those same lines, and I know that today wasn't the weather for it, but I'm concerned that over on 100 West, the diagonal parking, the lines are so faint, it's very difficult to see where to park on 100 West in that angled parking there. And I don't know if there's a schedule or when we might be striping next or what, Ryan. It's really faint and it's hard to see.
I also, in that same area, Ryan, I had a thought on the corner, next to Harding, that we blacked a few parking spaces out to get them away there. They're still parking over it, and it's really hard. Several of us go out that way after council every week, and it's really hard to turn on 100 West because you can't see the traffic because of cars parked there. So I was going to maybe suggest that we X out the whole area right there and maybe paint motorcycles only or something and allow, that and keep the cars out of there because they're still parking clear to the corner. And that you can't see when you're turning south on 100. It's bad.
You got to pull almost out in the middle of the road to turn.
So that's a good point.
But I think maybe down the road we might even look at a redesign. But that's another whole project.
That's why I suggested motorcycles.
Yeah, exactly. Motorcycles. Yeah. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
All right.
In that same context, I wanted to thank, I did thank Kit, but I thank Kit and city personnel for getting that curb striped on that north entrance to Walmart.
Yeah.
All right.
And that's been done, and it's being observed by the big rigs, and it's much safer. So thank you. Thank you for that.
I had a couple things. Ryan, Bruce Anderson, they want to do another cleanup on Highway 56. I want to organize that. And he was asking me about, did we help them last time we did that? Did they help us, or did you help us get the permit with UDOT? Ryan Marshall, sorry. Did you think Ryan? That was Ryan, sorry.
think my. So your name? Ryan Marshall, Public Works Director. I think Kathy helped them with the
Okay.
permit, and then we helped them out with some garbage bags,
Okay.
and then they did all the coordination and got the volunteers.
He's willing to coordinate it, but he's wondering if you could help again with some of that.
Yeah, if they want to get in touch with my office, I can have Kathy. She's pretty good at writing those permits for the state, and she can walk them through that or help them out with that.
That'd
As
be
far
awesome.
as the striping, I'll check with them. We have a contract with Straight Stripe that comes up. I know they're coming up this weekend. We got to check and make sure, but we were going to restripe the parking structure out here this weekend. So I can find out what their schedule is, and
Great.
then I'll try to get those others in there. The problem with the bleeding through, the proper way to do that is to either sandblast or grind the lines off. But that's quite expensive. The cheaper way is they cover it up with the black paint, but sometimes that bleeds through. So I'll take a look at that and I'll see what we can do where they've already put a coat over there, whether it'll just take another coat or if we're going to have to go in there and sandblast some of that off.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Just a couple other things. I attended an E&I Conservation Board meeting today, and that's a lot of different entities that meets. And we talked about, we got a grant from the state of Utah. It was $200,000 grant we did a presentation to the Department of Natural Resources this year, and they gave us $200,000 to encourage the agriculture community to convert their pivots to high efficiency pivots, moving the spray down to a bubbler. And we've come up with a point system to where the agriculture community can come in and apply. So the more inefficient the system they have, the more points they get, and it'll be a higher priority for them to get some of those funds. We want to get that money distributed quickly, so it's used this year, so we can start getting some data and some results, and so that's exciting. So we think that'll do about 20 pivots. There's about 8,000, I think it was 8,000 acres of alfalfa in the valley. So there's still a lot to do, but we feel like if we can get this out there and we can see results, that we're more apt to maybe get enough money next year to retrofit the whole valley. And if we can get the farmers to save, 20%, which we think we can, that can nearly balance our aquifer. So our deficit's 7,000 acre feet, and if they could get up to 20%, that's almost that's 5,600, 6,000 I think acre feet. So it'd be good. I also went out, Ryan, today. Your crews are doing an awesome job out there on that recharge project east of Metalcraft. That's really exciting, looking awesome. Thank you. So good job.
All right. Wonderful. Then we will move to staff comments. Are there any? No? Okay. Then we'll move to our public agenda with our public comment portion. If you're here to address an item that's not on the agenda, now is your opportunity to come and address the council. Try to keep your comments brief, and please don't repeat something that anyone else has said, just for efficiency purposes. And is there anyone that would like to address the?
Good evening, Tom Chet. I'll make it real quick. Grid edit cleanup 15, Highway 56. It does get overly dirty sometimes with some of the debris heading out west of town to the landfill. If they need any equipment or anything like that, have them please contact me, and I'll donate the equipment they need to do some of the cleanup out there for the heavier items.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, thank you.
How about my backyard?
I can dump it there.
Oh, you're quick. You're quick. You're off the mark, but you're quick.
Very good, Tom.
All right. Is there anyone else? No. Okay, then we will move on with our business agenda with our public portion. Item number 1, consider vicinity plans for the Cook County Townhome PUD.
Bob Platt, Mayor and City Council. This is Kids can bring this up. Hoping. This is an 8-unit townhome project proposed out on North Cedar Boulevard. Kokanee is this. And item number 2 there. Item number 2 is this 8-plex, and item number 1 is this 8-plex. But the vicinity map's been approved by the city engineer's office. This is out where the owners of this property worked out a trade with the city on when you completed the Coal Creek Channel project last year. And this property took on a whole new look with the grading and everything. So it's about 1200 North Cedar Boulevard.
Bob, is the dark line there, does that just indicate the property lines? Is there going to be any kind of a fence or anything between the two of them? I know it's the same owner, correct?
They're not the same owner.
Oh,
This is Kokanee.
yes.
This is Creekside. You're asking if we need to put a fence between the two?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if is there a planned one or anything. I'm just wondering.
I think we have to.
Yeah.
I don't think we have a choice.
Okay.
We're not into the construction drawings yet.
I'm sorry?
We're not into the construction
Yeah.
drawing stage yet.
I
That
know.
would be a requirement.
There's a vicinity plan.
All right. Are there any other comments, questions related to this?
Are we okay with the whole flood situation?
Well, that's getting closer all the time. There's a flood wall that was built with the Coal Creek project behind this that
Right.
basically flood proofs that area. And the maps are in the process of being changed.
I just
Thank you.
add 2 things really quick. The floor, these will not have basements, and the floor level will be established accordingly, even if it wasn't a floodplain, but it should be out of the floodplain fairly soon, as Kit
Right.
said.
We hope.
And one other thing, it's well below the allowable density on this property, so it's not, just pointing that out.
Sooner we can get these flood maps done, the better. I know one business owner called me. He's got an $8,000 flood insurance premium due right now. If that was updated, he wouldn't have to pay that. So that would be good to get those done.
My understanding is that Kit's doing all he can, but when you're at the mercy of the federal government.
Right,
you are at their
exactly.
mercy.
Yes, yeah, Kit's he's doing great. We just hope they.
About 2 or 3 remaining items that we need to provide them, and that should be everything they need from us. So, as far as FEMA goes.
Thanks, Kit.
These are townhomes.
Yes.
And where does our trail come in, Bob? Is that it? You
Your
kind
trail
of
comes
penciled in right
in
down
to
on the,
right in this area.
okay.
And then as we built this flood wall behind the apartments, we rough graded in a trail on the south side of that flood wall, so that
Yeah.
that trail will eventually go underneath I-15 and out into the valley.
Okay. Are there any additional questions or comments? We good with this on the consent?
Yes.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay. Item number 2, consider vicinity plan for the Creekside Townhome PUD.
It's just the same. It's just right here. North half. Yeah, here.
Kind of.
There's the bridge under the freeway right there.
And if I remember correctly, the reason I asked if they were townhomes, you would have the option to build a higher density in there, right?
Yeah, we're below density.
Okay.
We're below maximum density.
Okay.
All right.
No questions.
Sounds,
Any other additional comments, questions? Councilor staff? No? Okay, we good with this going on the consent? Consider final plat approval for the Iron Willow subdivision.
Okay, this subdivision came through vicinity map probably about 8 months ago or so. This is out, this is Lund Highway. This is Sycamore Trails is over here. This is an R1 subdivision with 19 R1 size lots. And I think they've about met all the requirements. Tyler, speak to
Yeah,
it.
there's all the requirements have been met except for one, and that was just the city getting the plat checking fees. Well, there's water acquisition fees, if I remember right, just the financial end. They told me that they were overnighting a check and I would get it this week. I made it crystal clear to them that if I don't have it by the time the action meeting, that the council couldn't vote on it. So I expect to have it on Friday, is what they told me.
Bob, who's the developer of this?
The owner is Miller Funding Group out of the Salt Lake area. So that's Miller Funding Group and Hunter Glen LLC. But it's the gentleman's name is Richard Miller.
Okay,
But he's not a local guy.
thank you.
All right. Are there any other comments or questions? We'll put this one on the action agenda pending
Check.
making sure we have all the financial stuff. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Public hearing to consider a general land use amendment for low density residential to mixed use for property located at 550 South Cross Hollow Road.
Good evening, Tim Watson with Watson Engineering. You're requesting a general land use amendment, and item number 5 will be the zone change request. We have a parcel of land that sits approximately right here. So we're just south of the Swiss Bed and Breakfast and north of the, it's not an irrigation pond. It could be if it held water or if it had water in it. Ooh, that was bad. Sorry. It holds water, but it's a storm drain pond. And we're changing the, we're requesting a change from central commercial to mixed use along Cross Hollow Road.
Fail.
That's okay. It wouldn't be the first time today.
All right. Does the council have any questions for Tim?
Just a why?
Do I have to answer that?
Well, you don't have to, but
Okay. At this time, this is what my client has asked me to do, is give them the option. As they have a lot of other central commercial to the north of the Swiss Bed and Breakfast, they want to have the option to see what the market will test right there along Cross Hollow Road. It gives me, or it gives them, excuse me, the option to either do commercial or residential there.
So this property was annexed probably 20 plus years ago.
2006.
Was it 2006? Sorry.
2005, 2006.
So a good 10, 12, 15 years ago. It's all the Armbruce property. When it was annexed, we had an agreement with the Armbruce that we would zone that whole stretch there along Cross Hollow Road, central commercial, which is how it's depicted now. So it's at their request to kind of go to a mixed use there and give them a little more options.
thank you.
Does that answer your question well enough?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions from the council at this point? If not, we will open the public hearing on this item. If there's anyone that would like to address it. All right, seeing no one, we will close the public hearing and this will go on the action agenda. Item number 5, public hearing to consider a zone change from central commercial to mixed use for property located at 550 South Cross Hollow Road.
Hello again. Tim Watson with Watson Engineering, for the record. Still requesting the same thing.
Zone change to go with the land use adjustment.
Yes, yes, sir, that's correct.
All right. Are there any questions for Mr. Watson? No? Okay. Then,
Thank you.
then we will
Thank you.
open the public hearing on this item. All right. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing and move this to our action agenda. Okay, item number 7, consider a lease agreement with Verizon.
So about a year and a half ago, the city updated its ordinance dealing with putting in cell phone towers and different telecommunication facilities. Since then, Verizon and a few other companies reached out to the city wanting to put in some infrastructure. This latest one is from Verizon. You can see on the picture there, they want to put a small cell antenna on top of our parking garage. And that's kind of depiction there of what it would look like. In order to do that, they've suggested some lease terms for this. It would be a 5-year lease that would give the city $4,500 per year. There'd be an annual increase of that rent of 2%. The city, one thing of doing these small cell antennas is they want to tie into the city's electric supply. So in order to do that, they're on top of the $4,500, they're willing to give us $1,200 to compensate us for whatever electricity they use. In talking with Kit, we thought that that should cover our bases, and so we're not losing money on that end. There is an additional term in the lease that says if they go above and beyond the $1,200, then we can seek to be reimbursed for that excess as well. There are 4 automatic extensions of 5 years each. We can get out of it before the extension comes to due, as long as we give written notice within 3 months of that. It's a non-exclusive agreement, so if another company wanted to come in and put on a tower up on top of this parking garage, the city could engage in those discussions as well. However, there is a term that says Verizon would have a right of first refusal, so if they wanted to come in and match it, they could. Other than that, most of the terms were fairly standard.
So this isn't an option, this is an outright lease.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And didn't I read in there that these towers, they can put up to 4 carriers in one anyway, so they could lease out to another carrier anyway, up to 4?
Yeah, so that's the one we actually struck from the agenda. So this one would just
Oh,
have one
okay.
carrier.
All right.
We'll,
I just remember reading that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, this would just be for Verizon.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any other comments or questions? Now, are we good with this on the consent agenda? Okay. Consider a property change between Cedar City and Iron County.
Good afternoon, folks. My name is Steve Platt. I know most of you, with the exception of just a couple, but first of all, I'd like to say I appreciate you opening your meeting with prayer and a pledge. Thank you very much. I have with me this evening Commissioner Alma Adams, whom I'm assuming you all know, and we may get to a part in our discussion where his input will be very valuable. I'm here to persuade you to exchange a piece of property with Iron County. We're not interested in buying it. We want to exchange it with you. This idea was my idea, and it was sparked because we need gravel material for 3 road projects in this vicinity. We also, in the future, will need gravel from this pit, if we can make it that, for the Lake Road, which is 7700 West. That's west of Quichapa Lake. So I got 4 major road projects. It would be good to have a gravel source close to them, so the cost of those projects is minimized. About 2 months ago, Preston Nelson and I, Preston is our road superintendent, we visited with your mayor and your city manager, and I told them that I could see here a possibility for a win-win-win. The first win is the county would get a gravel source close to some projects. So the projects would cost much less than if we had to import the gravel from the Cedar Valley. The second win is after we get the pit dug, Cedar City could use that as a detention basin and recharge your Quichapa aquifer. Now, where this is at the mouth of Quichapa Canyon. Do I need to say more about that location physically, or
Yes.
do you understand? Okay, I will, Scott. Let's start on the exit at I-15, the North Canaryville exit. If you go west for 4 or 5 miles, that's the Vandenberg Road. That road, as shown here, then turns northwesterly for another 5 miles to Highway 56. There's 2 of the projects I'm talking about. The other project is right where the road bends. There's a subdivision called Sunset. It was done in about 1982. They're 8-acre lots. There's 58 of them. They're building a lot in that subdivision right now, about 35 homes. Those homeowners have come to the county and said, we want to give you these roads. We want to pay to bring them to your standard, and then you can maintain them. So that's the third project, and the other one would be Lake Road in the future sometime. So we know where we're talking about now? Thank you. Okay. We know why it could be a win-win-win for 3 entities. Well, I said win 1 for the county, a gravel source, win 2 for the city, a detention basin. A third win would be flood control, so we don't have the water out of Quichapa canyons, right and left, going through the subdivision. This is above the subdivision. We contain the water. Now, this is not a perennial stream. It's an ephemeral stream. That means it's not always got water in it, but when we have a lot of snow on the Harmony Mountains and the conditions are right, either with rain or sun or temperature, we can get a lot of water out of here. And the best thing we can do with that water, rather than letting it flood Lake Road and go to Quichapa and evaporate, would be to detain it in this basin I'm talking about and recharge. Now, there are others. I mentioned Preston and myself and Paul and Miley who had talked about this, but since that time and to today, there are others who have had many conversations. I haven't been a part of all those conversations, but if there's something you know that I need to have said when I'm to that point, please say it. Okay, I'd like to go to the information sheet, which your attorney prepared for you for this agenda item this evening. On the subject there, he says land exchange with Iron County. On the second line there, after discussion, it says exchange. If you go down to the last paragraph, the second to the last paragraph, the middle sentence, the question for the city council is if you're willing to convey the city property to the county in exchange. Then we see just below that, he talks about sold or selling this property and going through 12 rather time-consuming items to make a sale.
Yeah, and we spoke about this earlier. When I put down that formal property disposal process, there is an exception to that. And the exception is if the city is going to exchange property with another government entity. So this would be an exception where we wouldn't need to go out to bid and go through all that process.
Thank you very much, Tyler. If we go to the bottom, the first sentence under 13, again, step 2, he's talking about exchange. Then you have, I think, on your sheet, some things that are in bold print or red print. Mm-hmm. In mine, they're underlined, and the underlined parts are what the county commission rejected as they looked at this 9 days ago. They rejected item B, item F, item G, and item H. May I say in relation to item G that I did take this afternoon, go with Locke Connie, who is in the state engineer's office, and look at the water rights to the west and to the south of this vicinity from where the drainage would come. It's all SITLA or BLM. There's no private property, hence no private property rights that would be infected here. if you go to a sale, and I hope we're not there, but if you do, the county paid $3,000 for this study, a gravel exploration. We dug 12 test holes. Kit has a copy of it to see if the gravel there was the sort that we needed. It's excellent material. We would also, as Kit's request, have done a hydrology study. That's going to cost us $5,500. We don't want to lose that money. Don't put us in jeopardy of that by going to a sale. Okay, to the third page, the county rejected item I and item N. And then item O says the county will perform all necessary engineering services for conditions A through H. Some of those were rejected by the county commission. The hydrology study did show us that the mean annual runoff from this basin is 3,800 acre feet. That's a significant amount of water. Now, some years it'll be a lot less, and others it could be more. Kit tells me that's the equal to the annual production of 2.5 of your wells in the Wichita Basin. So the recharge quantity we're talking about here is really significant. What is that worth?
Worth a lot.
I think it's really significant and ought to compel you, argue for trading this with the county. The very last sentence on Tyler's information sheet, please consider whether or not to move forward with the process of disposing of this city property. Please cross out disposing and say exchange. That's all I want you to do. Any questions?
Yes. Tell me why the county rejected item N. I don't understand. I don't think that's out of line for the city to request that.
Scott, I was not at the meeting. I was in California, so I'm going to refer to Commissioner Adams. Alma, that's right here if you want to.
Right.
Commissioner, how are you?
Good. Good to be with all you wonderful folk.
Will you still state your name?
Oh, my name is Alma Adams, and I'm one of the county commissioners. We didn't feel like we needed to provide a design showing the shape and the finished topography of the mine gravel pit because there's MSHA standards by which we have to do that. So, and that's what we will do. So I don't think we have to prove to the city ahead of time that we'll do this properly. Anytime we excavate anything, we have to have the proper slope and so on. So we didn't feel we thought that was overkill to have to require that ahead of time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Steve, can you tell them about the parcels that the county's going to exchange?
Can I tell you about the parcels?
Please tell
the
city council about the parcels you guys are trading for this one.
I wasn't part of the process to identify the parcels, but on the first page of Tyler's information sheet, he goes to great length to identify those for you. One is in Coal Creek by the diversion just below the County Visitor Center. I think it is about it's a little over 2 acres. Another piece is in the Bullock Pit. I don't know how the county picked it up, but there's about 3.5 acres in the Bullock Pit. Now, if you're familiar with the Bullock Pit, that's got 30 or 40 feet of garbage in it. We don't want it. You surround it. Let's not keep us as an island. We'd like you to get it. And don't tell me it's worthless because it's your garbage that's there, not mine, not the county's.
Come on, you guys put a bill in it.
So Steve, are you still, so I talked to Preston Nelson a while back about, he was looking for about 30,000 tons of material for this, was it 7700 West project? And we talked to Kerry Jones about removing some out of the recharge basin that we're recharging at the Wichita. Is that still on the table, or would you take all the material out of this pit?
Paul, I haven't been privy to those conversations. Carey's pit possibly could be closer to 77 because it's right on the north end, isn't it, of Lake Road?
Correct.
I didn't know that had happened.
Oh, okay. Preston
So
had called me once.
We could
and-
go
okay.
either location, but either's a lot closer than the city commercial sources.
I think I mean, this is my opinion, but I think the bigger hole you can dig there for us, the better. And so I would prefer I think that, I mean, if I just ran the numbers, and this is a rough formula, but if you take the Lake Powell, or not the Lake Powell, but the West Desert Pipeline, and you, let's say it's a $300 million project, and you divide that by 27,000 acre feet, which is what is in Wawa and Pine, and then you multiply that by 40, it ends up being about $277 per acre foot. That's the value of that water. That's what a financial person told us years ago. So if you take $277 per acre foot times 3,800 per year, that's $1 million worth of water. That's what that would be worth, that we'd be putting, if we could recharge that much, which I don't know if we could, but if we could recharge all of that water in this, the bigger the hole you made, the better. It would be worth $1 million a year in water value.
Yeah, please don't compare the 7.5 acres we're asking for to the 2 smaller pieces we're getting that total about 6.5 acres. If you want to go value for value, the real deal is with this recharge.
Well, and it's also the condition of the gravel that you're going to be able to use for the road project.
Yeah,
sure.
And that's the real deal for the county. 4 major road projects, a close source. These people in Sunset Subdivision will be able to afford these roads, and we'll be able to make that improvement for them.
So
those are 8-acre lots. So it's going to be a pretty good hit on each one of those homes. But if the gravel source is close, it'll cost them half as much than it would otherwise.
Yeah. So I guess this is maybe a question for Kid. How does this impact our future road projects in the city for the next 20 years?
Well, I'm not sure we ever anticipated using that gravel on our road projects. It's not that we can't, but if you look on that exhibit, that if we need to, if you look on that exhibit that I showed up there, let me get the.
You have 112 acres out there.
Say this.
We're only talking about 7.5.
All this property that's in yellow is all city.
I'm just asking the questions, sir.
Dan, please ask more. They're good questions, Scott.
Yeah.
Yes. We'll let you take all you want. It's a long haul back to the city, but we'll let you have all you want.
Okay, I just wanted to know. Thank you.
So a couple of terms that the county apparently didn't want to cross out were that they would dig the pit, they'd maintain the pit in the future so it doesn't get all silted up. They would put a channel in to get the water into the pit, and you'd fence it, keep the kids out.
We are good
Maybe the deer.
stewards. Yeah, we'll do that.
But those are kind of the basic things the county would agree to do.
I see this as a total win-win for the county and the city.
Thank you.
What process do we need to go through? Okay. This will go on our action agenda for next week.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Consider a raw land lease with Sphere One Aviation.
Commissioner, we didn't even ask you for any money. Wasn't that a great meeting?
So,
I just love trades.
so next time, bring your checkbook.
Good evening, council staff. Jeremy Valgartson representing the Cedar City Airport. Thanks for having this, kid. I didn't have time to run back to my office and get my PowerPoint. I didn't even get to put a tie on to make Chief Phillips jealous. So when Thomas bought the Sphere One FBO about 2.5 years ago, we sat down and talked about expansion. We looked at the master plan, and this area here is master plan for FBO expansion, and so is this area right here. So if you're familiar with the airport, here's the Levitt hangar. Here's Sphere One's current hangar right now, or their FBO building. So we pulled a lease here about a year ago. They're going to start construction here in the next couple months. What Sphere One would like to do is lease all this area right here and put a great big hangar up that would hold a G5 aircraft. They put a big fancy ramp in that can hold a G5, and then they'd have room for the fuel trucks to park in the back. Thomas Sphere One Aviation is really catered to the business traveling passenger. So they're trying to get more business and corporate jets into Cedar City. They're actually going to start basing a citation here for our charter certificate. So we have a need. I don't know if you've seen a Gulfstream sitting on our ramp in the middle of December, but we cringe every time it snows on those things because you just can't get the ice off of composite wings. So we have a need for that. It's been through Planning Commission, sketch review, airport board. They all agree that we need to have something out there, and they have a positive response. So we'd like to do a 20-year raw land lease with 5-year extensions, very typical lease out there. It does have a cost per index built into it. Our current market rate is 20 cents a square foot a year. So at 50,000 square feet, it's $10,763 a year for this lease. So, any questions?
Right.
Anything for another
We're glad to
G5
see
to
him
come in, I
come.
can look at.
That'd be cool.
Is it good for this to go on the consent? All right. Item number 10, consider SkyWest office space lease.
All right, Jeremy Valgartson representing the airport. So this is just in our main terminal, the main floor as you go down and enter the SkyWest ticket counter. Their lease is just expired. So it's 762 square feet of office space and baggage handling area that they need to issue a new lease because we don't extend the leases. The FAA has a rule that you can do a 5-year lease with 5-year extension. So we'd like to issue a new 5-year lease with 5-year extension built into it. We had an appraiser come in and appraise the bottom floor of the terminal at $1.30 a square foot. So we would propose to increase their rent to $1.30 a square foot per month, which makes their monthly payment at $990.60.
All right.
Yep, good number.
Are there any comments, questions?
No, but that's a good deal.
All
It's
right.
the airport.
Yeah. You have.
Is there a cost of living adjustment built into the SkyWest lease?
There's not, no. So at the end of the 5 years, at the first 5 years, we'll reassess the value.
Oh, so we have the option at that point to do an adjustment.
Yes. And this has also been through airport board, and they suggest we proceed with it.
All right.
Jeremy, as
Okay.
part of this lease, do they take care of the space, or do we take care of the space in terms of cleaning, maintenance, and that kind of thing?
Yeah, we provide all of the janitorial. It is a secured area, so they don't really let us back there. They just tell us when they have issues. But there's no bathrooms or sinks or anything. It's strictly just office space.
Thank you.
All right. So that can go on the consent. Item number 11, request to waive a portion of the water impact fee for the building at 660 North Airport Road.
I'm not sure there's a representative from Chrysalis
There,
here.
Chrysalis.
I think this item is either going to be pulled or delayed until the next work meeting. Their engineer's working on some things to figure out the exact size that their water meter needs to be, and that's what this is all about. And so we'll wait until we hear from him and see if it needs to come back to you or not.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll move to the staff portion with item number 12, consider changes to the airport rules, regulations, and minimum standards.
Jeremy should have just stayed up here.
Thank you, Mayor. Jeremy Valgartson representing the airport. Just a little amendment we'd like to make, and we're looking at our fee schedule, and we kind of have a big gap in our fee. We have these long 45-year leases, and they can change hands several times over the terms of the lease. And we have some leases where it's at 3 cents a square foot a year, and we're not making enough revenue to really maintain the land that these buildings are sitting on. So we just propose that every time a lease transfers to another leaseholder, that they pay the current market rate as adopted by City Council and Airport Board. So the language says the leaseholder of any assigned or transferred lease shall pay the current raw land lease rate as adopted by Airport Board and City Council and amended from time to time. So it's been through legal review and it's been through Airport Board, and they suggest we make the change.
Makes
Any
sense.
questions? Okay, put that in consent.
Thank you.
What action? All right. Yeah. All right. Item 13, consider declaring equipment and vehicles as surplus property.
Did you see those things? There's a limo.
Ryan Marshall, Public Works Director. Corey was supposed to be here, but he had another conflict. Wasn't sure if he'd make it in time, so apparently he didn't. But what you have before you is a list of vehicles and excess equipment that we need to surplus and put onto our surplus auction. We've gone through, this year we had a couple of departments that got new vehicles, and so their vehicles have been ready to be traded in. Corey, our fleet manager, has gone through each of those. They've looked at the overall city vehicles to see if there's a swap that can take place for a piece of equipment that's maybe not in as good a shape. So he's done all those transfers and everything, and this is kind of the result of it. And this is a list of the equipment that we feel is unrepairable or the oldest equipment that we have that we want to put up on the surplus auction. You guys had a list of everything on here. There were 2 more vehicles that came up after this list went out for your consideration. 2000 Chevy 1500 truck and a 2005 Ford Ranger. They're both out of the water department. The Ford Ranger could possibly be transferred over to the Parks Department and switched out for a vehicle there, but in case it doesn't, we wanted to get on this list and have the option put it in on the surplus auction. So I don't know if you have any questions about any of these pieces of equipment or how that surplus works. I'll do my best to answer it.
So make sure Jeremy had a chance to look at this. I was in that airport truck, and you could use a new truck out there, buddy.
They just got 2 used ones transferred to them, so they're better than they were a year ago. So.
All right, I got to go for another ride.
Before they didn't even have a double seater, so everybody was crammed in the front seat.
Oh, I know. I was there.
Just from my understanding, where are these auctioned? Is there a central location for that, or?
Yeah, it's an online auction, so it goes
Online?
to publicsurplus.com. So they go on there and bid, and then we keep everything in the fleet building, and that's where they come pick it up.
So before you sit down, there may be another late breaking vehicle that to get on here. The arena has it has a tractor. It's not very old, but it's significantly underpowered for their needs. They're going to enter a lease agreement with the state to lease one, not the state, but a vendor off the state bid list to lease a tractor for the arena season, basically the 6-8 months of the year where they have heavy use. And they're going to dispose of this older tractor. So they'll get with Corey over the next week, and I'll send an email to Larry to remind him. And that might also make it to your list.
Okay.
You'll also notice on here we're getting rid of the limousine for the mayor, so
Yeah,
she won't get to ride in that anymore. So she's very upset about that.
it's really vintage. What was the year on that?
94.
94. Yeah, it's been kept over for the parades, and they need space for floats, so they want to get it out of there, and we have no use for it. So,
Okay.
All right.
any other questions?
We'll put that on action so we can have the correct list for you for next week. All right. Item number 14, consider an ordinance amending the city's business license ordinance, chapter 23.
So there's a couple proposed amendments for chapter 23. The first one stems from the conversation Councilman Phillips and I had about wanting to make sure we're regulating the short-term rentals, Airbnb type homes and businesses. And then the second dealt with just updating some bond language. So to start with the short-term residential amendments, up to this point in time, the city hasn't had anything specific in its ordinance dealing with these types of businesses. Essentially, when someone would come in and tell us they were going to do it, we would tell them just to get your standard rental business license. So we've made some adjustments to define exactly what that is, and then we updated well, we created a short-term business rental, we created a residential short-term rental application, and then we adjusted just the standard rental application as well. So the definition, essentially, it excludes bed and breakfast, and it says that these can only be located in residential zones, so that would exclude hotels. They wouldn't fall under this. And it would be the renting or leasing of property for compensation for a period of under 30 days. They would need to fill out an application. The application would identify who the owner is, the address of the home. They would pay their fees, and they would provide their state tax number as well. So that ensures the city is recouping what it should be on those lodging taxes. The application basically goes through those. It also gives a disclaimer that says just because we're giving you this rental license, this business license, it doesn't mean we're saying that your property is up to code. That's on you to make sure that if you're going to rent this out, that you're in compliance with local and state law. So that would be the short-term application. On just your standard rental application, there's situations where someone may rent out an apartment complex to students through the school year, but in the summer they're empty, and then they could want to use that for a short-term rental. We're not going to make them do a separate application. On the general application, there's one additional line that I added where they would put in their state tax ID number. So those are the essential changes dealing with that. Well, before I move on to bonding, any questions on that?
Just that I appreciate the work you put in this. There's a lot of Airbnbs going on, and they're all over the world. And I just wanted to make sure that those residents that are involved in that are meeting the same standards and requirements that we respect our other hotelers and bed and breakfast to do. And so the city should get its fair share of those revenues coming back on the taxes. So I appreciate your work on that, Tyler.
You're welcome. The second portion was just striking out bonding language. So this has been in the ordinance for years and years and years now, and it's just something that, in speaking with Ms. Savage, it's not something we require anymore. And we don't require a pawnbroker or an auctioneer to go out and get a bond. So this is just cleaning up that language. So what's in there, we're actually requiring people to abide by.
Are there any comments or questions related to that? Okay, it will go on our action agenda. Item number 15, consider bids to purchase 8.2 acres of city property lying within section 21 south of Home Depot.
So this is the piece of property south of Home Depot that the VA has been interested in and purchasing for long before my time at the city.
Yay!
Yeah. So yeah, this is the section here. You can see where it's located with the state liquor store. We had an appraisal done, I think it was a year and a half ago. It came out to be $450,000, if I remember correctly, and that is the amount that the VA is offering for this piece of property. But there are a couple additional things that they want the city to do. So the first one would be that the city is going to provide a road that'll go from that Providence Center Drive up to the property. The second is the title report needs to be clean. That's something that I kind of passed the buck to the title company. So we're working on that, but I haven't done much than a phone call. So that's in the process of cleaning that title up. And then the third would be they want to ensure that the city has a minimum of 20 acre feet of water per year that is available to this parcel. Those would be the three conditions on the city side.
And this is for the VA cemetery.
Yeah, this is, yeah.
The water's
Yeah, this
for
is a.
special
I think
emergency.
this is a great project for the city, and I know it's been long in the works, and thanks to all of those that have been working on it long before my time. But this is an important step, and it'll be a beautiful entrance into our community on the south side.
They offered full appraisal, and there were no competing bids, right?
Correct.
We just have to do
Okay.
The only issue I see is the water. And we've been back and forth with this with VA for probably over a year. They want guaranteed water. It's hard to
So we don't actually have to give it to them, but we guarantee they can use it, or
It's hard to guarantee water in the West. Yeah. Most of the VA guys are from the East where
There's
It rains every day.
water all over the place, right?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
kind of don't have that same look on water.
Can we have some language in there that says in case of a drought or?
It's subject to special emergency circumstances. So
I think we need to have that in there.
Should probably also put something in there that says we're charging them for the water because we're going to charge them just like we do every other customer we have.
Yeah.
20 acre feet sounds high, doesn't it, for watering that grass?
for 8 acres. That's why we wondered.
Seems way high. They won't use any more than they need to, so.
I can get with is it John Robbins, if I remember right. I'll get with Mr. Robbins and make sure that he's clear, that term is clear, that we can't guarantee it. And then add some additional language saying they're going to be charged just like anyone else. So that's crystal clear.
Good.
okay.
Yeah, great things.
Yeah, this one. All right, this will go. Agenda for next time. Look at what? Can this go on the consent or action? All right, yeah, action.
Let's put on the actions so we work out the water stuff.
Yeah.
Item number 16, local public safety and firefighter surviving spouse trust fund changes.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. This is something we brought to you last year, if you recall. Mr. Phillips, I don't think you were here, so I'll kind of go through the background on this. There were a couple minor changes. Last year, the state passed legislation that required municipalities to fund health insurance for employees, firefighters, public safety personnel that are under the Utah retirement system. If that officer or firefighter were killed in the line of duty, the municipality would be responsible for health insurance for that spouse and any children until age 26. So the state put together what is called the Local Public Safety and Firefighter Surviving Trust Fund. Last year, we paid those premiums. And so those premiums are due up again this year. And what that means is that, God forbid, we have one of those occurrences, that the city is not faced with that large financial burden, that we can be reimbursed through that trust fund. So the amount stays the same. It's $95 per employee. We have 37 on the police side, 12 on the fire side. It's roughly $4,600 premium. And the only changes, and the reason that we bring this to you again to have the mayor sign, is that instead of requiring each agency to provide 24 months of insurance coverage after the line of duty death, they're only required to provide 12 months. And then reimbursement from the fund has been expanded to include any health insurance payments for line of duty deaths that occurred after July 1st, 2005. So any questions on that? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You good with that going on the consent?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, item number 17, reconsider the property exchange agreement between Cedar City and Sitla.
Okay, so I just wanted to talk about this a little bit. So we traded 10 acres of Sitla property up on the hill across from the ball fields, north west of the Cedar Middle School. When we traded that for 40 acres out in Fiddler's area, north of Fiddler's Canyon, I have never been happy with the stipulation that Sitla, half of the property is a mountain, which is about 20 acres. The other half is the other 20 acres. It's about a 6% grade. And I know, and it's beautiful property, but after a discussion I had last week with someone, I was under the impression that when the city went out there and visited or looked at the different sites, that Sitla owns they own a lot of property out there, and that there could have possibly been other sites that we could have considered. And when I went out and looked at this, I was concerned about the slope. It's about a 6% grade. And if we can we're restricted to only develop that 20 acres into recreational property. And as I think about it logically, that's ball fields or soccer fields or trails. I mean, I don't know what else you'd put there for recreation. And Phil Smith was kind enough to ride out there with me and give me his estimation on what it would take to excavate and build soccer fields on that. And it was very expensive. And when I was under the impression that there might be some other property available that we could look at, maybe down close to the road that's flatter and not as rocky, that was intriguing to me. But when I talked to Tyler again, he said that's not on the table. That wasn't the case, right?
Correct. That was Sitla does have other property there, but it's more valuable for them to develop. It's something they wouldn't have exchanged with the city.
I mean, like I say, this is beautiful property, and I know the Parks and Rec folks have raised money and you know, to put towards this project if that ever comes to fruition. I admire that, but I feel bad that if we choose this location, that their money won't go very far, because we've got to build a road that's, what was it, Kit? Maybe $750,000 just to build a road up there, and then we've got the other costs of excavation and parking and whatever, restrooms. And so the other thing, so that's off the table as far as other parcels. And I was on the record before concerned about the stipulation. It would be nice if we could trade that 20 acres for maybe a piece that was more conducive to building soccer fields. The other issue I wanted to talk about is, Kit, can you show where the road was originally? They have that drawn. I know that when I talked to Tyler, there's some language in the agreement that says we can choose where the road goes to that property, where we locate that, but Sitla has to be on board and agree to where we do that. And I talked to Tyler about this. I would like to see it in writing that we, you know, because if we, instead of the road being tying into the northwest corner of that 40 acres, maybe if we want to move that to the south, bordering some of that private property, which could help maybe Mr. Smith's situation or SUU where they have property up there, or any adjoining property owners where they could share in the cost of the construction of that road. Maybe it would be in the city's best interest to move that road to the south and have some other partners. So 20 years is a long time, but I hope that we have the language in there that gives us the option to have the final decision on where we put that road. And is that true that we have that option, Tyler? Or?
No, it's not. So the way it's written is that the city's going to approach, so this road is going to go through Sitla land. So the city's going to determine where we think the road is best for the city at whatever time it is we decide to put it in. We'll give our construction drawings to Sitla, and then they'll look at it and make sure that it's good for them too and approve it. The language does say that we're going to work together, that we're going to good faith efforts to make sure that both parties walk away happy. That's understood. I did talk to Miss earlier today and said, do we have the latitude of putting it north or putting it south? She said, yeah, the way it's written, it just has to go from this exchanged parcel to that Canyon, I can't remember the street, the road now, Canyon Ranch Road.
Okay.
But the reason why they want the final say is at the end of the day, we're going through their property. They've got to grant us an easement to do that. So no party has the trump card over the other. It's just two entities hopefully working together to get mutual benefits for each other.
But we do have the latitude of potentially moving it,
Correct.
Depending on all parties in agreement, of course.
But if there's a disagreement, then what?
Yeah, we
call your lawyer.
City could take our ball and go home, right? I mean, that's one option we have.
We say, well, you can have the option to buy it back, because that's in the agreement, right? They can first right of refusal if we decide, hey, we're out.
Correct. Yeah, we could put it up for.
Does that absolve us of the responsibility of building a road if we want out or not? Or are we still on the hook for building that road within 20 years?
Yeah, I would say we're still on the hook for building that road, unless we sell it to someone who takes on that responsibility.
But nobody's going to want to buy that with the stipulations of 20 acres of recreation and the other 20 acres of mountain, right?
Well,
because the stipulation of the recreation would go with the sell, right? Or not? Or does that go away?
Yeah, the stipulation with the recreation would stay on the 20. Yep. The other 20, that's free. That's Hill.
So the likelihood of somebody buying it would be pretty slim, in my opinion, with those stipulations. Well, I mean, if that's the case, I would like to see something a little stronger to where we had maybe the upper hand on where that road goes, but because they're doing well. Sitla's doing well with this agreement. They're getting a 20-acre parcel of recreation and a road right in the middle of all their property. So they're coming out on this deal really good. So
I
I
believe the
would.
city is too, though. I think it's mutual. And that doesn't prohibit us from putting a road on the south end, like immediately, as long as within the 20-year period, we build the road down there, right?
Correct.
I hope we can explore that. So that's all I have.
All right. Are there any other comments related to that? No. Then we will move on to the 2018-2019 tentative budget.
I think all these people are here for you, Jason.
It's Jason's big day.
Kids, you are in luck. This is a certified account professional. He's going to dazzle all the young ones in the audience.
We really won't be offended if you want to exit now for the budget. It's really fine. So.
Thank all of you for coming.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Uh-oh, what's this? Did you get this?
Thank you.
That's our life the next few weeks.
I know.
Those kids don't know what the message is.
All right. Should we start? Okay.
You still have to state your name.
I
though.
am Jason Norris from the finance area. It's our favorite time of
extraordinaire.
Yes. It's our favorite time of year, budget season. So tonight I'm presenting to council the mayor's tentative budget for fiscal year 2019. We will be having meetings with the various departments of the city on this coming Monday and Tuesday, May 7th and 8th in the afternoon. Those will be public meetings if the public would like to attend. As I stated, this is a tentative budget. We will work through basically this draft of the budget throughout the month of May, and then we will be approving a final official budget in June. We'll have to adopt a tentative budget later this month after you've met with departments, had the opportunity to ask questions about any of the capital or operating items that have been proposed in this version of the budget. So it's not final. This is just our starting point to work towards an eventual adopted budget for next fiscal year. Just a couple of things I'll disclose, and we won't be making any decisions tonight. Our general fund, as noted in this memorandum, it's in a healthy financial position. Budgetarily, we're increasing our total tax revenue to about $318,000. We'll be probably getting more than that. That's just what we'll need to balance out the budget. The way we're able to do that is we had a reduction in our debt this year. We've been making payments to UDOT for our South Interchange loan for about $185,000. So that last payment's going to be made in fiscal 18. So there'll be various items that we'll go over as far as the total budget. For personnel costs, that's going to be one of our major operational costs for the city. There'll be a net increase proposed of $570,611. This net increase represents a 2.5% merit wage increase for full-time and regular part-time employees, and we received a 17% premium increase on health insurance. And outside of that, our enterprise funds are in a pretty good financial position. Operationally, we're proposing several capital infrastructure projects, and we'll go through the details of those next week as well. So, are there any questions for me at this stage of the budget?
Look forward to Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah, it should be a.
It's going to be exciting.
It's sad when you can say that you're happy to only have a 17% increase on your insurance. That's a very sad statement, but
Yes.
I realize.
Yeah, in fact, you've probably read that there's been several articles written that that's a statewide issue, both for public and private entities. So it's challenging statewide right now with health insurance. So.
All right. Are there any other questions?
Just
If
can't
not,
wait to
can
dive
we-
in. That's
This
going to be
is
fun.
light reading, putting this on my nightstand.
I know it's
so
going to
that
be
I-
really fun.
Okay.
And you make the type bigger.
All right. Can we get a
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
No?